Cool. Okay, so I think everyone should be in by now, so let's get started. Um, yeah, so just to kick off, if you see this QR code throughout the presentation over the next half an hour, 45 minutes, you can scan that. You can sign up for a free AI readiness audit from us. It will be throughout the deck, so don't worry if you miss this chance, you can just scan it as you go. Um, Feel free to send in your questions. We'll be answering some of those at the end. But otherwise, yeah, we'll kick off with some of the content we've prepared today about AI readiness in performance marketing. Um, just to briefly cover off the panel and who we are, this is me and Annika. We will be talking through. My hair looks amazing on here, by the way, but unfortunately, not my real hair. Um, we'll be talking through some of the slides today and answering your questions about AI readiness. Annika, I don't know if you want to do a little introduction for yourself.
Yeah, hi, nice to meet you all. I'm Annika. I've been working with Tom for quite a couple of years now, and yeah, I'm really excited to talk about kind of like the newest developments in PPC today.
Perfect. So we've got a bit of an agenda just to go through. So we'll be talking about why AI readiness matters today, the importance of your data, how you can start using some of the AI features that are already available to you, how you can sort of make your creative process smoother and utilize the two together, some of the issues and worries around AI, measurement and testing, and then what there is outside of just the performance marketing sphere. Um, if it's loud in the background, there's like a huge storm going on, by the way, here. So apologies if you can hear that. So just to start off, I guess this is how we're looking at AI and I guess the three pillars we see to successful digital marketing. And those being data, the AI tools themselves, and the human intervention. So AI is only as good as the data you feed it. And if you're not feeding it high quality data, then it's not going to work the best. And the same with the human element. If you're not getting involved and feeding in the human side of things, whether that be creative, branding, messaging, nuances of your business, all of those things that AI doesn't have access to at these stages, then AI isn't going to work best. And then obviously to use AI, you have to be using AI, which is using some of the new features available to you. Um, but in this case, we see AI as an opportunity to do things faster, do things better, and really use as a tool to accelerate your marketing. It's not necessarily something to worry about or something it's going to take your job. It's definitely just at this stage a tool that is out there to help you. So let's go into a bit more detail. And Annika's just going to talk a little bit about some of the AI tools and AI changes that are shaping performance marketing currently.
So yeah, I think when we talk about AI readiness, we ultimately talk about two things. So one is kind of like the organizational readiness, so what the business needs to bring to the table to be in a position to really utilize AI. And the other one is obviously the sort of like technical abilities we have now in the accounts. And in an ideal world, like we can combine both that the business KPIs are kind of like informing which tools we can use, and the tools can also inform kind of like which business decision might be more valuable to sort of like do now rather than later. So we have a lot of like automated bidding and budgeting at the moment. So the first was obviously with going away from like standard campaigns into smart campaigns. We have talked quite a lot with clients recently about AI Max. PMax is kind of like an ongoing discussion as well. So yeah, there's all these new tools coming in, kind of like pushing the automation side of things. And obviously this aligns with the budget as well. Like, a couple of years ago, we would control a lot with like the budgets that we assign to certain areas. And now what we tend to focus more around like that proper targeting structure. So there's like a shift in how we kind of work with automated bidding versus how we used to work with smart bidding. Um, we have like advanced audience targeting features. So Google collects all the signals that they have available that sometimes go beyond our expertise, not always. So that's where the human element comes in as well. But ideally, it's designed to find your audiences that you might not have considered before. So I think this is particularly interesting when you look into search terms, for example, like let's say you have a particular trainer brand. In the old days, you would have said, okay, I don't want to just bid on something generic like trainers, right, or sneakers. But in these modern days, like Google might have enough information to actually know which type of trainer you're after. So as a user, you will get exactly the kind of, for example, shopping results you're after. But as a marketer on the other side, you might see that term and not quite understand what was going on there. So there is a lot of advanced audience targeting happening, but obviously, again, it needs to be understood correctly for your business to work. AI-generated creatives is another one, especially also with AI Max coming on. So there's a lot more that Google pushes where Google helps you generate creatives or generates creatives for you based on headlines and descriptions you've given it, based on the quality of the site, based on the content of the site. So that goes away from kind of, the kind of niched control we had a couple of years ago over headlines, descriptions, ad copy, and also images. And when utilized properly, it can really accelerate like your creative process. But yeah, again, it needs kind of like uh, just someone to check if it's actually on brand.
I think,
Um,
yeah,
yeah.
creative's a key one. I think that's going to change not just Google, but across all of the sort of performance marketing channels, especially leaning into channels like Meta, but also TikTok and Pinterest and everything else that's sort of creative first. Because it's not, I think AI got off to a bad start with creative, and there was the worry that is it just going to create a rubbish looking image with a guy that has 7 fingers and all of this kind of stuff. But actually, I think people are a lot smarter and the systems have improved since then. So, um, now we're talking about uploading templates into a system, and rather than generating 10 ads from scratch, it's sort of making 50, 100 variants from a template set of designs, which allow you to test a much faster pace with much quicker results than you might have seen previously. So um, yeah, I think it's just thinking about how AI can help speed up some of your creative processes without taking that fully away from, an educated designer in this case.
And I think that also ties in with the real-time creative personalization, right? So that by giving different creatives, for example, or by testing different creatives, um, platforms will also like push the ones that are working best for an individual user in an ideal world. So again, the platforms will have information about the users, how they interact with their searches, for example, what they've searched previously, to personalize any kind of like creative messaging you have and make it unique to that user based on all the information you've given it.
Yeah, definitely. Um, and I think a lot of the platforms kind of group some of these together, AI, audience, and algorithm have kind of all been, yeah, grouped under the AI sort of funnel. If you hear Google talk these days or Meta, it's AI, AI, AI. But actually, smart bidding, automated bidding, algorithmic bidding has been around for a long, long time. And now it's just the case where they're starting to utilize um, more of those AI features, but it really is those new competitive channels or campaign types where they really come to the front. So it is yeah, Advantage Plus obviously on the Meta side, AI Max over the last couple of months on the search side. And then obviously your PMax, which has been around for a while now, takes advantage of some of those advanced audience targeting options that Google introduced. alongside sort of the changes to broad match keywords as well. So then I think some of the other things that we get asked a lot about or are mentioned a lot when we speak to people is, what do we think about AI only platforms? And I think we get this question because Meta have been quite vocal about introducing a sort of a fully managed AI service. And what does that mean for marketers, whether in-house or agency, and how is that going to change things? And their goal is to launch an app by the end of 2026 that will essentially do all of your marketing for you. You will put in a budget and it will do all of the creative, all of the messaging, all of the audience targeting, and just spit out the results for you at the end. Now, that for some people will sound quite scary because it means, well, what do I do if that was my job? Or it might also sound scary in I don't want to hand over the reins to an AI system just yet. And they're both fair points. And that's why I think it's not going to change anything for people. I think it will just adapt and change your role. So as before, where you maybe spent more time putting creative into an ad set, for example. Whereas now it might be, okay, am I feeding the platform the right data? What's my data quality like? Have I got CAPI set up? Is consent mode V2 set up? Am I feeding it micro conversions? All of these different things. Have I given it the right brand messaging, creative guidelines? And all of these different elements are going to be really key. And then also the bit that we still do anyway, which is the output. How do I know that this is driving good results for me? How do I know that this is incremental benefit and not just what the platform's telling me? So I think understanding the data going in and understanding the data going out are both going to be really critical, even if some of the more like day-to-day tools eventually move away into sort of AI optimized tools, I don't think that's going to change a lot for a lot of people. It's just, yeah, taking away some of the grunt work, in my opinion.
So just a quick one on like why we think it's valuable that you think about how you want to kind of like trade in this new AI environment and what that means for your business as well. So one of the hypotheses is obviously that like early adopters have an advantage over any kind of accounts that adopt later. What I mean by that is that um, users or like any kind of marketeers who test now obviously have the test results for their individual like businesses ready and can roll them out on a larger scale if they work for them, or can kind of internally discuss, for example, brand rails. Do they need to do something to keep a really close eye on the creatives, or do they need to sort new creatives to really drive that AI function? So that early adoption and testing obviously gives a benefit, but ultimately what where we can really see kind of the value coming in is that when you have really good data and you can feed it to the algorithm, it has a direct business impact. You can run more efficiently, you can run more effectively in certain areas that are key areas for your business. And ideally, you can reduce the unqualified traffic coming to your site by really making sure that you feed the right data into the platforms to get the right audience signals. So, the intent is higher, for example, if you're a B2B business, that the lead quality is higher. So this is all something where AI can help when you give it the right data. We'll talk about this in a bit as well. But in a quite competitive environment, the question is also, what are your competitors doing? Like, are they already utilizing AI? Do they feed it with like really good data? And are they potentially having an advantage over your activity because they're already using it, right? So as early as you can get into like a good shape with your data to really understand what you want to use or utilize AI for and push it through the accounts, you can scale potentially faster and gain that market share ahead of your competition. Another one is obviously like peak, so it's all coming up as something we'll be talking about a lot over the next couple of months. So really understanding where AI can kind of help you capture that demand in peak as well. And the last one, so it kind of all adds up to this sort of long-term competitive gap. So anyone who feeds the AI with good data now will have that historic learning. AI always needs a lot of historic data to perform really well. So even if you don't use some of the AI tools available in the accounts at the moment, like feeding the accounts very good data from your business will already kind of enhance the learning effect in the platforms, so that over time you will not have a disadvantage over any kind of competitors who have done this a couple of months ago.
I think is a really good point about testing as well in terms of, Google, Meta, and the other performance marketing channels are always going to push us in the direction of using these tools. And I think testing them with a critical eye before they become mandatory, like some of them have become already, um, is going to mean that you have an opinion and an understanding of how they perform for you before you're pushed. Um, so I'm always of the opinion that it's better to jump before you're pushed, but with a critical view in terms of what that means for you and what the output and the results look like for you as well. Um, so yeah, I think it's going to be key to start really trialing some of these new platform features as soon as possible, so you can understand what works and what doesn't, before they become the norm, really, and before your competitors hopefully start using them as well. So, as we talked about, I think one of the key areas is data. We've mentioned that many times already, but it's still key right now. AI is going to go through phases, but one of these things that's never going to change is getting your numbers right. If if your numbers aren't right, then your AI results aren't going to be right. What you're tracking isn't going to be right, and it's going to struggle to make decisions that are correct for you as a business. So when we talk about good quality data, I think it's about setting those foundations to be able to use AI. There's no point testing um, if you haven't got the foundations in place to begin with. So I'll let Annika talk through a couple of these ones as well, and just yeah, making sure that your conversions are in a good place, and then we'll have a little bit of a chat about that as well.
So yeah, there's a bit two sides to it. So one thing is obviously the tracking. So having a really rigid tracking approach with your primary and eventually your like secondary conversions if you have any. So we're talking about like micro conversions here is vital, that you do sort of like test that your conversions are firing properly, that you understand what you're tracking, and that the platforms can track that as well. So in Google Ads, it can be all sorts of like, the conversion values you feed into the platforms, and Meta, it will be the pixel. So just making sure that everything from the tracking side of things is working. And then on the other hand side, that your kind of your values align with your organization. So that the values assigned to these conversions are actually aligned with what you want to see, right? So for like an for an ecom business, it's maybe a bit easier than, for example, for a B2B business. But I think here it's also really vital that you understand what a conversion is worth for your business. And then you can value that and weight it effectively into the account as well. Another one, which is quite critical sometimes, is offline conversions. So if you see a lot of offline conversions, for example, coming through your sales team, it's something that the platforms can't track. So there's like a gap basically between what's happening in the platforms and your offline conversions. And there's a way to capture that these conversions and feed them back into the platforms. But this is one thing to really check if there's a way to either enhance the conversion input, like from offline conversion back into the platforms, or if you have any other ways to bridge that gap. And then, yeah, as I said, like tracking working GA4 linked. So just make sure that you have consent mode enabled, that when you work with any first-party data, you do it in a privacy safe manner. And then ensure that tracking is accurate as well.
Perfect. The next slide, I think, is a bit of a cheat sheet for things to look at. So Obviously, we'll share this round with everyone who's attended. But I think on here there's quite a few points that you can check over and look for to make sure that your audience signals are right, your first party data is right, and you've got everything integrated. Um, because yeah, these are sort of the things you want to be checking and making sure before you sort of go full steam ahead with AI. Then I think there's also the understanding the results element. So presuming your data is correct and you started to receive some of your results, the next is to understand, okay, so what is this doing for me as a business? And I think this applies not just to AI, but to all sort of areas of performance marketing. But for me, there's sort of three key pillars really of tracking. And you've got your platform tracking, you've got your analytics tracking, which for most people is going to be GA4, and then MMMs are sort of your third portion to that. And I think they have made a comeback over the last few years because they cover some of the gaps that we've seen crop up recently. Um, whether it's, understanding how your online and offline match with each other and how they impact each other's results, um, or whether it's customers you can't track through consent mode and people declining cookies. Um, and actually, there isn't one right or wrong way of tracking, but the real answer is how we're going to use all three of these together to understand results that you've got from your marketing efforts. So as your let's say for example in a year's time we suddenly are all using a Meta AI app on Facebook to show our ads. Um, I think we're going to need a combination of all three of these to really understand what the output of that activity is. Um, so yeah, having strong, robust measurement in place is going to be really key as well to understand your results and really see what's happening when you move forwards. So I think back over to Annika for the next one.
Yeah, so when we talk about AI readiness, there's a certain like a structural element you can kind of set up in your account to make sure that the AI has everything it needs to perform at its best. And with this, I think it always really depends on like what your business needs at a certain time. So Google is pushing for a lot of like consolidation, and we've seen really good results from that. So basically, instead of like having over segmented campaigns or ad groups, we kind of seeing really good results with a more consolidated approach for the smart bidding to work. So it's sort of recommended that any campaign, in order to use smart bidding effectively, needs between like 15 and 30 conversions. It depends a bit on your business type as well. But it's recommended to test if you can consolidate any campaigns that have like a similar or the same target into like one campaign and monitor how that's doing versus being split out in separate campaigns. And the reason for this is really that AI needs data. So when you just get the odd conversion here and there, the algorithm can't really like learn from any trends. So the more signals you give it in any kind of campaign, the better it will perform over time. When I say it needs to align with your business KPI, so if you have different campaigns with like different budgets and like different targets, then probably it will be better to have them still split out. So then there are other possibilities of like how you can enhance the volumes in the campaign by, for example, bidding more towards like micro conversions, or it will be very business specific, but the setup is really like informed about how the algorithms work in a smart bidding environment, not so much in what's best for us to report on, right? Because we have quite sophisticated reporting capabilities these days as well. The target ROAS is a really good one to assign on the campaign level with like the business intent. So really make sure you understand what are the products in a campaign, what keywords are you kind of using. If you use demand gen or PMAX, really make sure that you understand how this aligns in your like overall business funnel, like what you want to target and what do you want to achieve with it. And then you can also kind of set your tests up in that way to see if you get like more clicks to the website or more conversions from that, or if your lead quality goes up as a result of, for example, a consolidation. One thing when it comes to the account structure and campaign structure as well, just make sure that you double check any kind of guardrails we have at the moment. So negative keywords, brand in or exclusions, URL exclusions, for example, sites for blocks, just to make sure that the AI already has kind of like a negative in mind as well, where it shouldn't show.
Yeah, I think I think they're all really good points, and I think the other aspect to this as well is how can AI take some of the responsibility and workload off you with some of these results as well. So if you, presuming you have access to an AI platform, and that AI platform is obviously sandbox or ring fenced for you to put your business data in there. Please don't share your business data just straight into ChatGPT, um, because that can be used for learning. But yeah, if you have a ring fenced option or you pay for an AI model, you can also use it to take stock of your outputs. So, for example, within our Asposco platform, that has all your data already in it, and then you can just ask the AI within there, or, what was revenue for last week? What was the cost for last week? How did this campaign do? Um, and let AI take some of the heavy lifting off you as well. So you've got more time to do the more intelligent stuff, the sharper stuff, and strategies, branding, and next approaches rather than yeah, spending all your time doing reports, which is probably slow for you. So then the next step, again, talking about removing the heavy lifting and talking about speeding up your processes, is creative. So this is something we mentioned at the start as well. But there are plenty of tools out there at the moment which can speed up your processes. So whether that's feeding in some of your creative headlines and helping come up with new headlines, new descriptions. Obviously, we always recommend running these past a real human first to make sure they meet your brand guidelines. But if you can think of three or four by yourself, then AI can probably help you populate out the remaining 11 that you have to put in or should be putting in to test. Obviously, it can help you scale with your image design as well. So before, where you might have to have a single designer mock up multiple types with slight variations, you can now just have variations created en masse while still using good quality imagery, good quality video. Um, there's a ton of opportunity there. This also helps people overcome ad fatigue. So, one of the biggest problems we see when auditing accounts is that they've had the same ad creative in there for months and months on end, and it's reached a huge frequency of people. It's actually, based on our research, we've seen that, within 3 weeks, ad copy and ad creative start to fatigue. So really, this should be allowing you to update ads faster, try new creative, and really, yeah, speed up that testing pot of new things. Um, and then also, yeah, utilize some of the AI algorithmic features of the platform that allow you to test on scale. So whether that's A/B testing, whether that's dropping more creative into a single campaign and letting the best, work itself out. There's a lot of different options, but the platform's sort of built around testing multiple pieces of creative at a time right now. Again, saving you time, and allowing you to work at a much faster speed than we would have done a few years ago. So Annika's just going to talk a little bit about the common concerns around AI.
So yeah, I think when it comes to AI, a lot of people are have voiced a lot of concerns, some rightly so, some not so much so. And I think Tom already said we don't at the moment have to be worried about our jobs. Like, we're still bringing that human element to any kind of PPC management. And it's kind of like, I think, more vital than ever that someone goes and checks what certain automated strategies are doing. Um, but there's just a couple of things we wanted to address, and then I've already seen a couple of questions coming through, so we'll address these in a bit as well. So one of the concerns is the over-reliance on automation. So a couple of clients I work with have voiced that, and I've also like just picked that up in conversations in the industry is when everything is automated now and we don't really have these manual controls anymore that we used to do. So I think this really came into full force with the launch of PMAX. Any old marketeers obviously had, all the controls from CPC to interest targeting. So that's kind of like all automated now, and a lot of these kind of manual processes have just been removed, right? So they're not even an option anymore. So the question is like, how do we work with automation without the over-reliance? And I think the answer to that is really measuring and regularly checking, right? So I think we need to trust the algorithms in to a certain degree, but I would always recommend to double check the basis on which the algorithms are working. So really do check your tracking, do check the audience signals feeding back into the platform. Make sure you understand what you're targeting, your business KPIs, your targets. Obviously, give the automation some room to learn. So a little bit of budget will always be spent on any kind of like seasonal changes, on changes in product fluctuations. The algorithm is constantly learning. But where, for example, you can include these kind of like negative guide rails, as I said earlier, I would really recommend checking and doing so. Another one then kind of like ties in with this is like the control element, like how much control do we still have? And is it just a matter of giving AI everything and just sitting there and watching it do its thing? And it's really not, right? So we still have some level of control, especially again around the target settings and around the data being fed into the platform. So really, as a marketeer or as a business, you're in control of where you spend your money. And how you make the algorithms better. And then I think Google is also going more and more into the way of like making certain things more transparent within the campaign types. So for PMAX, for example, after a long, long year, I think 3 years of waiting, we now have some insights into channel performance. We have search term insights, so do use those. And there's also quite a lot of scripts out there to help you kind of shed light into areas that are still a bit intransparent. I think one thing just to mention with there on this side is really do check what the AI is doing versus what we would do in the quote unquote olden days. So, the trainer example, you might see good performance on things you wouldn't target, for example, with a keyword. But because the user intent signals Google have are so good that this is something that might actually perform quite well for you. Even though you would have just disregarded it from a search term perspective straight away a couple of years ago. So I think it's really kind of like testing and checking and controlling kind of where your budget is spent and how well this is doing for your business.
Perfect. So just to summarize, I guess what we've talked about, and I guess what you might have got from this talk in general is that we're still in the really early days of AI and the meshing um, with performance marketing channels. If you feel like you're behind at this stage, you're not. We're really very early on, and I think as we talked about, we're very much in the foundational stage of the correct data, understanding how you can use the platforms and understanding how they can perform and utilizing some of these new features. It's only going to move faster from here. And I think if we look over the next, this is just my opinion. I don't have anything to base this on, but if I think about what's going to happen over the next few years, I think automation of the day-to-day basics will increase. And I think you will see the platforms themselves start to introduce a performance element as well. So what I mean by that is within ChatGPT, I think you're going to see things like sponsored shopping ads, for example, and I think you're going to see the same across the others as well, whether it's Claude or Gemini. AI overviews in America have already got ads in them. Um, we're going to see these platforms monetize themselves more and more. So I think if you've got the basics right on Google and Meta, which are the foundational channels for a lot of people, then you're going to be able to translate that across to the newer channels when they arrive. So ChatGPT have already got a feature where you can upload your feed. If you've already got a Google Ads feed, then you're well on your way to being able to just replicate that into ChatGPT. Um, so for now, it sounds not that exciting, but I think it is quite an exciting time because we're right at the start. And I think because we're right at the start, you want to start off on the best foot, and that's just getting the basics right, like we've talked about in this sort of presentation. Um, I understand we do have a few questions, so I'll quickly just jump to the end and say that we are going to do a similar presentation to this on the SEO side. So if you want to join the next one and you're interested in organic and SEO and hearing from our specialists on that side, we'll be running another webinar on the 15th of October. So I'm sure there will be some interest there as well. So yeah, 15th of October for the next one. Shall we go through some of the questions, Annika, just before the end? I'll just stop sharing so I can actually read them. So let's have a look. So one of the questions we've got was around issues with AI creative, impact on PPC, and the recent Shein, I can never pronounce that, Shein kerfuffle. So yeah, I think kind of talked a little bit about this one, but this again, it goes back to having good good brand guidelines, good um, sort of creative that you can feed into the platform um, to give it an idea of what you're looking for, and then having that human check as well. So I think obviously doing things at the scale of Shin is, there obviously is no or very little human checking on going on there. It's sort of left in the hands of AI to churn out as much as humanly possible due to the scale of that brand. I can't imagine there's many brands that are working on the same scale as they are. Um, unless we've got Amazon watching this, in which case, yeah, there's always going to be opportunity for a human to look over things before they go live. Um, and I think, yeah, I would still be using a real human designer as well at this stage to generate some of those templates, generate the different call to actions, and generate the different elements, and then using the AI platforms to really drive as much of the manual element as possible. But yeah, really having a human part to all of that. Not sure if there's anything you wanted to add to that, Annika.
No, I just saw another question coming in. One of them here was the biggest aha moment that you had with clients who did like an AI readiness audit. So from my experience, there's two sides to it. So sometimes we're like able to spot some like really low-hanging fruits in terms of, for example, like campaign consolidation, just really simple steps like marketers and accounts can take to enhance the performance of the algorithms in the account when smart bidding is enabled. What I also find though is sometimes that we have these conversations that's not just like a matter of kind of adopting AI tools and toggling something on or switching over to like AI Max, for example, but it's more kind of like having the conversations of organizational alignment. So, are data pipelines in place and is your CRM list set up correctly? Do you understand, what the highest value audience is for your business? So a lot of the times the questions that arise from these audits go into sort of like the business KPIs as well, and then kind of spark those conversations that then inform kind of like what the business will do with this audit going forwards as well, rather than just from mere implementation of any kind of smart tools.
Makes sense. Other questions? For someone just starting to utilize AI within their PPC journey, what's the very first step you'd recommend after today? Um, so apart from the I guess the boring stuff that I've talked a lot about of being data, I guess it's understanding and having something to compare the results against, is my opinion. So if you're setting up an AI campaign, whether that's AI Max or something else within Meta or another channel, really you want to understand, okay, well, what does good look like when we're running an older style campaign? And is AI going to build on that? Um, so is it driving the right type of customer? What are the metrics looking like? And looking at soft metrics as well, like engagement rates and bounce rates as well. Because I think yes, conversion rate is going to be the main KPI for a lot of e-com brands and retailers, but actually, are we driving a lot of traffic that's just useless as well? Um, so yeah, understanding your sort of key metrics is going to be really important to know what good looks like from an AI point of view. Um, it really all does come down to measurement at the end of the day. Should we take one more question, Annika? We've got a couple. Um, let's I guess this is a good one to end on. What are the biggest pitfalls you see when it comes to data quality and tracking for AI-driven PPC campaigns? Do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I think it ties in what we said earlier as well. So, what can really make or break the algorithmic performance is just like inconsistency in data. So, if your data is misaligned and mismatched, you have any kind of tracking issues, for example, that's kind of like a really easy thing that could throw the algorithm out from performing well. So, this could be issues like double tracking or not tracking the right conversions, having multiple conversion goals. Um, so the algorithm is only ever as good as the historic like volume of high quality signals it has. So if the signals change, and it will throw the algorithm out, and you're kind of back in this learning phase and you have to learn again. So yeah, I think the way the data accuracy is in the account, it will not only inform the performance, but also kind of like the audience targeting, for example, when you look at your first party data. So I think this is one of the biggest pitfall. You see that a lot of campaigns don't perform well, but then we look into it in a bit more detail. We really do see that some of the signals do have some issues where we would say like, oh, we need to check this with like, the dev team. We need to look into tracking. We need to question your CRM database, for example.
Yeah, and just one final point on that. I think going back to the measurement point as well, especially if you're going to invest more in social, you've got more creative, and you may be trying a bit more consideration phase or upper funnel is trying to wean yourself off the sort of drug of Google Ads tracking, because everyone loves the instant results and the instant ROAS of that, but actually, um, as we move away from individual channels, and looking at a combined view of performance, it's okay, well, how are we going to measure this awareness campaign that we're going to run, or this lead gen campaign that we're going to run, or um, yeah, this consideration phase campaign that we're going to run, what benefit did it bring to my other channels? What benefits did it bring to our stores? Did we drive a lot more people in store? Um, so having an option for a holistic review of your performance as well, I think is going to be key to understanding what AI is doing for you, because I think it will naturally help people break down some of those barriers for upper funnel campaigns and branding campaigns that maybe seemed out of reach when you just had a single designer, for example. So yeah, I think that is everything. We are 1 minute over time, so thanks for everyone that stuck with us through that. We will share the deck around with everyone that's attended, and yeah, if you want to join about organic channels and SEO on the 15th of October, I'm sure we'll be sending invites around for that as well. So yeah, thanks for your time and thanks for all the questions. And yeah, we'll see you all soon. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.